Overrated wide receivers. Let's get into it. On Underdog Fantasy Football, the scoring is, of course, best ball format, meaning we want to draft for upside and want to take the biggest possible swings that we can. That best ball format means when we take boom bust wide receivers, the weeks that they boom, we do really well. The weeks that they bust, someone else is going to fill in that spot, so it's not as big of a deal as it is in our redraft leagues. But hopping into who we got as our first overrated wide receiver when looking at current Underdog ADP, it's going to be Ladd McConkey. The number one reason why we want to fade Ladd McConkey is looking at his profile on the Rotoviz Screener. The Rotoviz Screener, a program which looks at historical data and historical seasons to project what those wide receivers or players of any fantasy football position will do going forwards. And Ladd McConkey is projected as a wide receiver, as overall wide receiver 12 to 16, somewhere in that range. So if that's his projection, why would you draft him at wide receiver 10 where he's currently going off the board? It's overdrafting him. It's taking him to, if he was going at wide receiver 12, I would say we're drafting him at the top of his range, which I don't like, but I understand it. Wide receiver 10 on the higher end outside of where his range of outcomes are. Absolutely do not like to pick with Ladd McConkey. Let's take a look at who you can get with similar ADPs just below him. A.J. Brown, a superstar wide receiver. Yes, the passing offense is not fantastic on the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's not fantastic on the Los Angeles Chargers either. They're a run-first offense just like the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, A.J. Brown has a running mate at wide receiver, but Ladd McConkey, they just spent a second-round pick on Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. He can do fundamentally the same thing that Devontae Smith does in terms of taking targets away from Ladd McConkey. Now, also, T. Higgins is just going barely below Ladd McConkey. We have to keep in mind, while T. Higgins did not finish as an elite wide receiver, on a points per game basis in 2024, T. Higgins was wide receiver 2 behind his teammate Jamar Chase. So should T. Higgins be able to stay healthy, him and Jamar Chase can both be wide receiver 1s, even though they're on the exact same team, the Cincinnati Bengals. We just saw this, or not just saw this, but we saw it a couple of years ago with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both being wide receiver 1s on the same offense. So our next overrated player here is going to be Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Zay Flowers. And yes, Zay Flowers is not going off the board at an extremely high ADP. He's only wide receiver 27. But my question is, when you're looking at Zay Flowers, why would you draft him? There is no upside when it comes to Zay Flowers. Both of his first seasons, he has averaged the exact same amount of points in PPR leagues. Now, wide receiver 24 and wide receiver 30 in an offense ran by Lamar Jackson. He's a very good passer at this stage of his career, but he's still a rushing quarterback who does not provide fantasy relevant wide receivers. So he's stuck with Lamar Jackson. He has Mark Andrews, a very talented target hog as well in his offense, and the upside just is not there for Zay Flowers. Yes, he is a talented player, but we want to pick for upside, and it's just not there when we're looking at Zay Flowers. So the guys around him, the easy pivot for me is Calvin Ridley, one spot after him. Yes, Calvin Ridley is on a historically bad Titans offense, but we are swinging for upside. There's a possibility that Cam Ward comes in, has a CJ Stroud type turnaround season for the Tennessee Titans, and absolutely blows up every fantasy target for that offense. That is not a possibility with Zay Flowers. We saw him recently with Mark Andrews getting hurt and Lamar Jackson winning MVP. The guy was still a wide receiver 2 on the season. The upside's not there. That's what I'm going to keep saying. The upside's not there. But there was someone who, when I was first preparing for this video, I was looking at the Underdog ADP, and I absolutely was expecting this player. When I saw his ADP of wide receiver 20, I said, there's no way that guy is not overrated, because that guy has a lot of problems. And the player I really want to talk about right now is going to be Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice coming off the board at wide receiver 20, which of course, really good for the Kansas City Chiefs number 1 wide receiver. The thing with Rashee Rice, he has 1, the torn ACL, and 2, the legal issue. So we know the legal issues are obviously really bad. So the legal experts are projecting 6 to 8 games of a suspension. But the new news is it might be so bad that he doesn't get hit with these legal issues this season. And he might not even, he is already at Chiefs camp, like non-mandatory camps. He's running routes already. So there's a possibility that Rashee Rice is coming back. The reason why I have him is I have not drafted any of Rashee Rice so far on fantasy football because I was under the impression that he was going to have that suspension and he was going to be starting the year slow because of the torn ACL. But torn ACL was early on in the season. And it's crazy that because I don't want to call them allegations because it definitely happened, but because his legal situation is so bad, it actually might end up being a positive for Rashee Rice. So what I will say about Rashee Rice is this is a situation that we need to watch very, very, very closely, because if we hear any more news that the suspension is not going to be taking place this season, then Rashee Rice's ADP of wide receiver 20 is going to be something that we absolutely need to be taking a chance on. Yes, he is coming off that torn ACL, but if the guy's already running routes, there's a chance that this guy is going to be someone that we are going to be really excited to draft and could have tremendous upside specifically for the fantasy football playoffs. Now, I don't think, or it's not good process to go out and draft a player because you know he's going to go off late in the season. Usually in these point accumulation leagues, you want to make sure that you are getting guys who are going to play the entire year. But sometimes you want to sprinkle in a little bit of that end of the season juice, because when the playoffs come around, that's when our playoffs come. That's where the big payouts are on Underdog Fantasy Football. And Rashee Rice, you got to be absolutely fearless to draft this man, especially when you can see my favorite. I can't even call him a risk anymore because it feels like Travis Hunter's projection is very, very easily projectable now as a very good rookie wide receiver. But Travis Hunter, one of my absolute favorite rookie wide receivers to draft, and my two highest drafted rookie wide receivers are actually, or not rookie wide receivers, my highest drafted receivers overall are Travis Hunter and Kansas City Chiefs Jalen Royal. So both of those guys, I guess you could say I have interest in Rashee Rice, not playing a ton this season, but this is a situation, like I said, we need to watch it very, very carefully because it can change. And when it does change, Underdog ADP is going to be right there to pick it up. This ADP is insanely sharp. The Underdog ADP, when you look at Sleeper or ESPN, looking for overrated or underrated players, there are guys popping out at absolutely every level of ADP. There are mistakes everywhere. This Underdog stuff, really, really, really tight ADP. And when there are little things to take advantage, like McConkey, like Zay Flowers, you got to make sure that you are taking advantage of that. But that's what I got for today. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. And as always, have a great day.